For quite some time now, within the politics and the commercialisation of the idea of climate change and the propagation of that, and environmentalism, it's the word environmentalism which ought to concern people, because what does it mean? What is an environment? Well, environment, I have environment in the middle of my head, I scratch. An environment is any point within a geographical region, and it's intertwined with multiple different environments. The environment isn't just, they don't talk about the environment, and they talk about the greening, the natural environment, the biosphere, the biosphere itself, which is the overall environment. But they don't talk about the human environment, the psychological environment, the mental environment, the physical environment, and there's just the environment within the economic system itself, which is causing far greater chaos in the planet than the use of CO2, in my opinion, because the economic environment is so disruptive to the people who are supposed to be more affected by the cost of the change and transition to fossil fuels and a carbon neutral future, whatever that may be. Because a carbon neutral future, I think people say things that they don't quite understand what they're saying, because trees are carbon, grass is carbon, we're all carbon-based organisms. Organic carbon-based molecules make up the life itself. But so when you say carbon neutral, it doesn't explain things very well to anyone. It's just a thing to say. It rolls off the tongue. It sounds good to say it, and it's just another part of the propaganda. But what about the environment within the family itself? People really struggling to pay rents and mortgages and things like that, because the ability to acquire assets and inflate the price of that is going to cause a far greater disruption to millions of people affected by that, the financial environment, than they are by climate, because the climate is something we need to practically adapt to by putting in means to counter the possible direct effects of climate change, which is food shortages. If you're not considering hydrology, which is the use of water, and food shortages as a thing, and also in most important thing in my mind as a real environmentalist, I've been all my life, it's not new, it's not a fashion item, it's something I've always deeply cared about because I was tutored in it from a child. It's not new. So when I hear about people talking about environmentalism and they're flying around in jumbo jets to meetings where lots of other people meet in they've arrived there by jumbo jets or billion-dollar yachts, I get concerned that there's a bit of hypocrisy there about they go talk about global warming and all fly south for the winter where it's warmer, but the most important part of this is the contradiction in saying we care about climate, blah, 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 we care about CO2, and yet I have not heard them talk about food security other than broadacre farming, Monsanto and other people investing, which is not food security at all. That's a corporate profit security. It's not food security, because the real food security on this planet will be to create a parallel, sustainable, social, organic, economic system what allows people then to work. Because there's a deficit of employment and restrictions on employment, but it should be a non-restricted employment on people who want to volunteer to work on projects that create a sustainable, social, organic economy for them, because there's a great benefit in that. It changes their psychological environment, for one. It changes their health, the environment within their body. It changes their environment within their mind, because they're doing something creative themselves towards this goal of improving the outcomes, or trying to do something about climate change and the outcomes. They're actually involved in activities that is directly towards doing something actual positive towards defending ourselves against climate change, or whatever we're supposed to call it, by being involved in increasing the biomass. And all the people, and there's lots of people we hear about, they've got trillions of dollars, and they've got, what do they do with the money? Acquire more assets, to control more assets. How much, and I don't know, maybe some people are, in Saudi Arabians are doing it, and some people are putting money into creating hydrology in the deserts and growing plants in the deserts. I commend them. In the West, because there's a corporate system, they're not really attached to a country's future, just their own corporate future. That is separate, probably, from because it's globalist, they're global corporations. That's separate from the future of the country or any country. They're like a separate, overarching entity at the moment. What it's all about profit, and making sure they're secure, regardless what happens to the rest of society's economic environment. And it doesn't make sense. It's actually a contradiction to say we all care about environment, we all care about climate, yet where's the money? They could put some money. It doesn't take a lot. You could put some money. Elon Musk, he got richest man on earth. You're going to acquire Twitter. Well, acquire some land instead and employ people as well, if you like. Twitter makes money. Employ someone out of the profits of Twitter to create a sustainable, social, organic economy which uses hydrology, which you can use wind and solar to make new water or recycle water. That's very simple. You can look it up on the net. There's plenty of ways of cleaning town water, wastewater, and feeding that into a system. What then is a perpetual or permaculture system, which has exponential growth of the biomass, organic biomass, that employs people on 22-hour week, because they've got to, it's no good saying your involvement in climate change is only putting solar panels on your roof or buying an EV, because that's purely a commercial aspect of this. People don't realise the greater value, and they will, one day the cars will be finished and traded in and gone, and one time their solar panels will pack it in and you're going to put them on the tip. But creating a organic, sustainable, socially involved, organic economy within a organic biomass is far greater value in regards to the environment, many different aspects to the environment, not just the natural environment, the psychological environment, the mental, the physical environment. People's health is their wealth, in other words. So when I haven't heard much at all from the WEF, then maybe I can't, they'd be surely telling us, but they should be employing all these people with trillions of dollars. They've got a lot of money between them. They can afford then to allow over a free base without restrictions, without too much regulation, but allow the free will of the people who want to volunteer and work 22 hours a week on these sustainable, social, organic economies, which is creating an organic biomass, which is far more valuable than putting all the solar panels on the planet, on the roofs because that is taking CO2 out, it's employing people, and it's involved with the natural environment, not just the industrial environment, and the environment of profit taking and inflating the shares on the stock exchange, because that is also another environment. So when they talk about environment, it's a very, very narrow view of what an environment is, and actually you can't actually pin down what environmental is unless you try to explain it in a philosophical sense, like hopefully I may have alluded to, and people can make up their own mind then, from then on, what it actually means, so they can listen carefully when people say things and know whether they're meaning anything at all in what they say. And if you like to share these videos and subscribe to them and pass it on, it would be great, because I don't have a studio, I don't intend to get one. It's nothing about anything about other than promoting the ideas of a sustainable, social, organic economies, creating organic biomass using wind and solar to create greater value, a real quality, if you like, quality climate change action, if you like, rather than just an EV, solar panels, all that. Yes, whatever they do, but actual real action on the ground in the social environment, that is, people in people's hearts and soul. They're then actually directly engaged. Then they're engaged in it. They're not just become on the periphery or march like soldiers towards this goal. They become engaged in this project of doing something about carbon, or whatever that is, whatever your goal is, that's beneficial to them and beneficial to the planet, beneficial to society, and beneficial to animals and birds and the bees and all the other things that the planet's environment ought to sustain other than corporate profits.